Hey, warriors. So everybody's talking about, the awakening, the rapture, timeline splitting, but almost nobody is explaining, why all of this is happening, at the same time. So I'm going to try to break it down in a way that it actually makes sense. Um, what we're experiencing in simple terms, is, before the collective awakening, humanity was basically in autopilot, right? Just living life, reacting to the world, not questioning anything, right? But once people started waking up, emotionally, spiritually, consciously, you know, something changed in the field. More people became aware of, to patterns. More people started healing. More people started asking deeper questions. Okay. That shift in awareness isn't just psychological, you know, consciousness itself is a measurable energy. Okay. Um, so how quantum mechanics fits in the whole thing without it getting weird. Okay, very simply, in quantum mechanics, we all know a system changes when it's observed. Okay, so what happens when millions of people are observing and focusing on the same collective outcome, right? Awakening, truth, unity, healing, the probability of that outcome increases, pretty significantly. And that's not fantasy, you know, that's literally quantum, probability shifting, right? So how the whole rapture idea fits in. And but not the fear version, okay? I'm not going there. And I really don't need but I'm trying to be simple, okay? When people hear the word rapture, they think of floating bodies floating up into the sky. Okay. But the real meaning is just separation of consciousness. Okay. A split in how people experience reality. Not physical disappearance, vibrational diversions. Why people split into two groups, right? Why they're split into two groups right now. And it's you might have noticed a very real divide, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. People who are waking up, questioning, expanding, healing, and people who are doubling down on old, patterns, fear, anger, denial, okay? And these groups aren't good versus evil, okay? They're simply on different stages of evolution, okay? Um, Now we're going to try to, bring in like remote viewing and okay, so the people that work in, clairvoyant or remote viewing type work, okay? They're saying that there's two general outcomes that they're seeing, okay? One, a future where humanity is more conscious, cooperative, and self-aware, okay? And then there's the other timeline where, people stuck in low vibration, keep looping in fear, conflict, confusion, okay? Um, these aren't separate worlds, they're separate experiences of the same world, okay? So why the low vibration people won't be with us later, that idea, I know we've all heard it. Where it's getting misunderstood, it doesn't mean they die or disappear, okay? It means they won't be part of the same level of reality you're creating, okay? um It's timeline divergence, through consciousness, not physical separation, if that makes sense. So what's really happening right now, we're in a moment where collective focus is reshaping reality, at a quantum level. Okay? Um Half the planet is awakening, healing, they're healing generational trauma, asking deep questions, reconnecting to, their intuition. Okay? And the other half is resisting change, which creates the feeling of split. Okay? But this is not punishment, this isn't doom. This is evolution, and not everyone evolves at the same pace, right? So what you can do right now, your job isn't, to drag anyone, to the next level, okay? Your job right now is to keep raising your own vibration, your own alignment, your own clarity, okay? So, because consciousness spreads, you know, um, one awakened person affects thousands, you know? So whether you call it, the awakening, ascension, the rapture, or, timeline shifts, it's all pointing to the same, truth, that we're all, we're changing, we're remembering. And the more of us who stay conscious, the more the future bends in our favor. Legends, love you.